One of the best found footage movies I've seen. Hey guys, it's Ian Lives. Welcome back to another YouTube video, another episode of Hollow Binge, another bonus upload, and another horror franchise ranking. It's been a long time since we've ranked a franchise. I think the last time was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was a couple months ago. Today we're going to be talking about a franchise that is still going strong, just recently released a movie, we're going to be talking about the VHS franchise. This is a franchise that is a found footage anthology franchise. There's 7 of them so far. There were 3 that came out in 2012, 2013, and 2014, and then the third one bombed horribly. So they took a hiatus, and then Shudder bought VHS, and Shudder has made 4 so far. We're going to be ranking these. Each movie we're going to be talking about some of the segments, some of the ones that I liked the most. And this will be containing spoilers for the VHS franchise. I will be talking about some of the segments in detail, so you have been warned, including the newest one. I am going to talk about that because, holy! Starting off with the bottom of the barrel. Now, this is pretty much everybody's bottom of the barrel, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but everybody who's into the VHS franchise, who has seen the whole thing, knows that the worst one is definitely VHS Viral. This is the third one. It's weird how bad this movie is because compared to all the other entries in the series, this is just a different level of bad. The quality of the movie is horrible. The acting is just downright horrendous. And even like the ideas in the segments aren't very good at all. You get the wraparound story called Vicious Circles, which is like this YouTuber guy who sees that there's like this, there's this chase happening with a cop outside of his house. So he goes out there, and the car that the cop's chasing is this ice cream truck that's playing a jingle, and the jingle from the ice cream truck is possessing everybody. It's just a very weak wraparound segment that doesn't really have anything to do with like interweaving with the segments that are actually in the movie. It's just kind of there, and then it goes static into the first segment. And the first like segment in here is Dante the Great, which is probably one of the worst segments in the franchise. It's barely even found footage. There's some mockumentary segments in it. It really feels like it's just a movie. Like the found footage aspect is lost. The found footage aspect is lost throughout most of Viral because it doesn't really have that super staticky, grainy effect that most of the other movies have. It's very polished looking, and it just loses a lot of the flair. Another segment in here, Parallel Monsters. I don't even remember it. I think it had something to do with this guy who made like this separate dimension, and he talked to himself or something. It wasn't very good, pretty weak. Then you have Bone Storm, which was the one with the skateboarders. That is probably the best one in Viral. It's still not a great segment though. It's very cheesy. It's very bad acting. It almost feels like a video game toward the end where these skateboarders are just beating up these mummy zombie things, and I don't know. And then Gorgeous Vortex, which I don't even remember that segment. Alright, so I apologize. But yes, the bottom of the barrel, my number 7 spot, goes to VHS 3, aka VHS Viral. Again, that's like the obvious choice because nobody likes that freaking movie. Moving on to my number 6 spot, we have the one that came out last year, VHS 85. This one did not work for me. I know a lot of people loved it. I only really liked one segment, so it didn't work for me. It lands in the number 6 spot. The first segment was the first time in the franchise that we got a 2-parter. So it's called No Wake. You start off with this segment where these people are going on this trip. They're at a lake, and they get picked off by this like bow and arrow type thing. No, you don't really know what's going on. And then they are alive even though they should be dead. Which once they added that onto that segment, I was like, okay, this is kind of dumb. And then like, I want to say like the second to last segment is continuing off the first segment, and it was very messy to me. It didn't work. I get the idea that they were going for interesting concept to have a two-parter anthology in your anthology movie, but it just didn't work. So I didn't care for No Wake or Ambrosia. And then the next one was God of Death, which I'm pretty sure God of Death was the one where they were like exploring this tomb. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, remembering each little detail of these movies is a lot when I binge watched the whole entire series, and that's a lot of different segments. So I forget some of them, but I think God of Death was the one where it was like this crew, like I don't know if they were miners or what, but they were exploring like this tomb. And yeah, it was very boring and long. I didn't care for it. Obviously, it was forgettable. And then you also have TKNOGD, which was this one that involved virtual reality, which just was, again, really boring and wasn't horror. There was not enough horror in that one at all. It was supposed to be psychological. I get that, where she's got the thing on and they're showing like this alternate reality and it eventually like takes control of her. Cool idea, I guess. I don't know if it works for a VHS movie that's primarily horror, like full-on horror. Some parts of the VHS franchise truly scare me. So, and TKNOGD felt like it was hinting at scaring, but never fully did. Then you also have Dreamkill. Now, this is the segment I like, and I love this segment. It's one of my favorites in the franchise. This is directed by Scott Derrickson, who did Black Phone and Sinister. Dreamkill is really cool because it starts off with this very gritty and grainy tape of this serial killer killing people. I love serial killer stuff. You guys know this. It's the POV that really, it's very unnerving and unsettling, almost to like a Poughkeepsie tape level of things, and I really was enjoying it. And it then goes forward to these two detectives interrogating this guy, this kid, who had the tapes. And it was just very interesting. It was very good. They do a stakeout at one point, I'm pretty sure, and the whole twist was kind of obvious, but it was still cool for a little short story. You had the guy who was in Black Phone and Sinister, and he was also in It Chapter 2. I don't know why I can't think of his name. And then you also have Robert Rodriguez's brother. I also forget his name. He was in Planet Terror. But yeah, Dreamkill was amazing. And then you also had Total Copy, which was the wraparound story of this movie. Again, very forgettable and very bland. It had something to do with they were trying to clone this kid or something. Overall, VHS 85, unlike Viral, it had cool ideas floating around. It just didn't really land. There was only, again, one segment I truly, truly loved. The rest I thought were very bland. There's not, I don't think, a bad segment in here necessarily. They're just pretty forgettable, and it overall made just a bland movie. It's definitely toward the bottom of my ranking, for sure. VHS 85 had me nervous for the newest one, because it's like, has this movie run out of fuel? Has this franchise run out of fuel? My number 5 spot is going to go to the first VHS movie that Shudder took control of. Again, very unfortunate to see such a recent movie on here. I think this came out in, I want to say 2021, so about 3 years ago. VHS 94 is in my number 5 spot. Again, people loved this movie. I'm just okay on it. The wraparound story is Holy Hell, which was like these cops were doing like a drug thing. They go to bust this drug guy, I'm pretty sure, and inside they find this they find these CRT TVs and VHS tapes, and that it makes the wraparound story. Honestly, one of the weaker wraparound stories of the franchise. I wasn't super engaged with it, and it was just like, okay, can we see the next segment? Which you never really want for the wraparound story. Which I'll talk about later when I go to the later movies, but there's been some great wraparound stories, and this is definitely not a highlight. The first segment was Storm Drain, which was a crazy segment that involved these newscasters who hear this urban legend about this thing called Ratman, and they go in this drain to get some footage of it, and they stumble into this huge weird cult ritual thing that involves Ratman. And I gotta say, the design of Ratman, you guys saw it in the thumbnail, it's insane. It freaked me the hell out when I first saw it. It just creeping up out of the drain. Really cool effects, really cool design. I loved the look of Ratman. for sure. It definitely is. Like, when I think of VHS, I see Ratman. It was a really cool segment. I loved Storm Drain. It was very bizarre. The route that they went in, because you kind of just expected these people to go into this storm drain and get murdered by Ratman, but they added these cool little things onto it, and I really enjoyed it. The next one, The Empty Wake. Whew. Definitely my favorite of this movie. Definitely one of my favorites of the franchise. The Empty Wake is an insane segment where you have this girl who is, I don't know what they're called, but she organizes the wake, the funeral wake. She sets up the music, she records it for if they want the footage of it. She narrates it, she does the whole thing. And she's waiting for these people to show up to this wake. And nobody shows up. And it's like this huge storm too is happening. Tornado sirens are happening. And eventually the dead body inside the casket is gone. And it engages one of the creepiest zombie things I've ever seen. It's a really cool zombie segment. There's some zombie segments in this franchise. There's actually quite a bit of them. Probably my favorite zombie one that they've done. Very creepy. A very cool little gimmick and cool little, gimmick that they do with the zombie's eye, because his head is like broke off so he can't see. But there's a scene where the eye's on the ground and it's looking at the girl. Very creepy scene. And it ends with this tornado, and it's very cool and very impactful. I absolutely love that segment. And I'm sad to say that that's where the movie kind of drops off, which is why it's just okay. You get 2 great segments and 2 forgettable, boring segments. The subject was interesting. I'll give it that. It was interesting. Where you have this scientist who does experiments on people and turns them into robot machine things. It just dragged on way too freaking long. This segment just felt like it just wouldn't end. And there wasn't enough carnage for me in that segment. And then also terror, which I can't even tell you much about because I kind of forgot it. It was like these guys, these hillbilly type guys who kidnap people, and I think they kidnapped a vampire or something. It was hard to tell what the hell was going on. They didn't explain much. And again, it was kind of uninteresting and a little slow paced. And definitely was not a highlight. So overall, 2 great segments, 2 pretty blah segments equal an okay movie. So VHS 94 is in my number 5 spot. In my number 4 spot, this is going to either anger a lot of people or have a lot of people agree with me. I'm not sure. But in my number 4 spot, I have VHS 2. This is most people's favorite. It has a pretty good Rotten Tomatoes score. Even though VHS 94 has like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what the hell they're smoking. But VHS 2 has like a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's like the fan favorite. So I was excited going into it, and I was kind of disappointed. So tape 49 is the wraparound story, where these 2 people are assigned to try to find this guy who went missing. And they go to his house, and they find these CRT TVs with VHS tapes, which... it's not a very interesting or exciting wraparound story. It's just kind of like we needed something to get to the point. Again, not a very highlighted wraparound story. The first segment is Phase 1 Clinical Trials, which stars and is directed by Adam Wingard. And this is where this guy is in this car accident. He loses his eye, and he gets this like robot eye that has a camera in it, so you're in the point of view of his robot eye. Starts seeing spirits and stuff. Very messy, very clunky segment. It couldn't really grab me. There's some cool scenes, some cool visuals where you have this body underneath like his bed sheet. That was pretty haunting, but other than that, pretty forgettable, pretty messy all over the place, tone-wise. Again, not a very highlight segment. And then A Ride in the Park was the next one, which is definitely one of the highlights of this movie, for sure. What's so cool about A Ride in the Park is it's a zombie segment in the point of view of the zombie. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I've ever seen a zombie movie, a zombie anything, where you're actually watching the movie through the point of view of a zombie and not through the victims trying to escape from the zombies. It was very interesting. The concept alone would have won me over, but the actual segment was actually really good, where they go to this birthday party at this pavilion and they tear stuff up. Very cool gore effects, and just overall a cool idea. I really enjoyed a ride in the park. And then Safe Haven is usually people's favorite of this movie, but I thought it was just okay. Another one of those segments that don't frickin' end. Felt very long, but I will say that it's a really cool ending to the segment with that whole goat creature. Very cool effects again. It's like this, they go to like this school thing. It's like a ritual, and you never know what's going on. Pretty creepy, pretty ominous. And then they do the ritual, and this like super weird goat creature thing starts chasing this guy. And again, there's good moments. It just felt like it didn't want an end. But yeah, I do enjoy Safe Haven. It's just not my favorite. And then, speaking of my favorite, Slumber Party Alien Abduction was freaking insane. Another one of my favorite of the whole entire franchise. Probably top 5, including the ones that I've already named. This one's also in there because before the newest one came out, which if you guys don't know, you probably do, VHS Beyond is the newest one, and it focuses around sci-fi, aliens, all that stuff. That's like the theme of that movie, for the most part. I'm looking at you, Justin Long. But Slumber Party Alien Abduction was just such a bizarre alien thing, because I don't know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, there's very few movies where I've actually seen people get abducted. And it was creepy because it was found footage, and you're with these kids who are having a slumber party, and they're just like messing around, and the whole house shakes, and then the camera goes in the sky, and it was just 0 to 100, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And apparently the director, who, I'm pretty sure this is the guy who did Hobo with a Shotgun. I could be wrong with that. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. He made a full-length movie called Kids vs. Aliens that apparently takes the concept of that, but makes it more of like an actual horror movie, horror comedy, obviously. But still, Slumber Party Alien Abduction gets the seal of approval for me. I really love that segment. Definitely my favorite segment of VHS 2. Moving on to my number 3 spot, which was in a different spot, but I actually wanted to watch it again after watching the rest of them, and it definitely impacted the overall opinion of it. I'm talking about the one that started it all, VHS 1. Again, this was my favorite when I first watched the franchise. About a week ago, I watched the whole franchise and anticipated for the new one, and then when the new one came out, I watched the new one, and then I was like, you know what, I want to watch the first one again and see how it holds up after seeing how far this franchise can really go. And it held up for the most part, but is definitely not my favorite anymore. It's just, after seeing how far this franchise has gone in quality, and in ideas and concepts, the first VHS kinda lacks a little bit. The wraparound story is tape 56, a very classic setup where these guys they're just troublemakers, and they're assigned to steal this tape from this house, and they go inside and there's a bunch of CRTs with tapes on the ground. Again, very classic setup, but still one of the better wraparound stories, because there's a part where they're looking for the tape, and you see this like weird creepy looking creature thing, and they don't really add on to that, but it was still a really cool creepy moment. The first segment is Amateur Night, which again, top 5 status, probably maybe top 6 now, but Amateur Night is a great segment, dude, where these 2 guys, they want to film themselves having sex with women, because, you know, guys, you know how they are. And they go to this club, and they get these 2 girls, and this one girl is really weird, and she has these beady eyes, and she's just really strange, and she ends up being like this cat lady, bat lady. She has like fangs, and she acts like a cat, but then toward the end of the segment, she picks up a dude and flies him all the way to the sky in a really cool moment. Amazing segment, because the effects on that cat lady are just insane looking, very creepy, definitely effective. I love Amateur Night. Second Honeymoon was Ty West's segment, This one is really good as well. It's just, it has the classic Thai West fashion of being a little too slow, but still somehow being good. These two couples, this couple, not two couples, Jesus Christ, a couple is two people. This couple goes on a road trip and some stuff goes down. Still not entirely sure like what the outcome was because they don't really explain it. I'm assuming the wife secretly had a girlfriend and she wanted to spend her life with the girlfriend, so she murdered the husband. That's what I'm assuming, but there's different ways to take it, I guess, because they don't really explain it. Still a good segment. Tuesday the 17th, an okay segment, where this group of people go to this lake and there's like this mysterious glitchy killer that starts killing them. I say glitchy because every time they show the killer, the camera freaks out. And it just got kind of corny once they revealed like why they're at the lake. Because one of the girls set it up because she wanted to kill this killer. And I don't know. Again, didn't go far enough. The next one was the sick thing that happened to Emily when she was younger. Pretty cool segment. I really enjoyed this one where it's told through like a Skype call. The first and only time that we've seen that in the VHS franchise. Reminded me a lot of a movie I saw earlier in Hollow Binge, the Collingswood story, because of how the Skype desktop interface actually looks. But the twist of this really surprised me. Again, still like not like a firm meaning to everything. It's very vague. I'm just assuming this guy is in like a cult or something. I mean, I don't know. Again, one of those ones that they don't explain. But there's a really creepy scene with a kid that runs and shuts a door that freaked me the hell out. And there's a part where she's like digging at this thing in her arm, and there's some gnarly stuff in this segment. But yeah, I mean, and Joe Swanberg did that one, and he actually starred in Second Honeymoon. So, and then the last segment, probably my least favorite, which pains me because Radio Silence directed it, and I usually love Radio Silence. I'm talking about 10/31/98. This segment was just kind of, it was a cool idea where these guys are going to this house that they think is a haunted house or a party, and they're hearing noises in the basement, so they think the party's in the basement, and they go up there and there's like this cult ritual thing where they're cutting this girl open, and they freak out and they try to go back in to save the girl. Again, didn't go far enough, which I understand. This is the first VHS. It was like just a proof of concept, little indie, low budget horror movie at this point. So I understand why it didn't go as far as it could have on some of the segments, but still could have gone further. Overall was my least favorite segment of the movie, but I don't know. Maybe Tuesday the 17th is my least favorite, but still, there's not a bad segment in this movie. It's just this movie went so much further with the concepts. So that's why the first VHS is in the number 3 spot. In the number 2 spot, this movie was honestly great. And I was contemplating making it my number 1, but this was 2 years ago, VHS 99. This was really cool. I really enjoyed this movie as a whole. All the segments are great. There's only one that I thought was just okay, which we'll get to. But the best thing about this movie for me, I enjoyed how 90s it felt. It felt very authentic. The wraparound story, there's not really a wraparound story in this one. If you want to call it that, you can call it that. There's like little army guys stop motion. Very fun. I mean, it's kind of a wraparound story. I don't know. Kinda. But the first segment was shredding, where you have this band who goes to this, it's like a Jackass type group of people where they have like this show where they just do stupid stuff. It's a parody of Jackass for sure. But they're also a band, and they want to go to this abandoned concert place, hall, bar, whatever it was, that burned down and is now abandoned, and a band there died. So they go there, they have fun, they goof off, and then the ghosts of the band that passed away actually haunt them. And it was really fun, really campy segment. A lot of camp in here, very silly, almost like a horror comedy standpoint as well, because there's some there's some weird dialogue in that segment. The next one is Suicide Bid. This segment's great because I have a strong fear of being buried alive. This segment is where this girl really wants to go into this sorority, so she does a suicide bid. If you guys don't know what that means that she only put in an application to that sorority. So if she doesn't go into this sorority, she's pretty much a loner. And she meets up with these people to try to get into the sorority, and they say, you can get into the sorority if you bury yourself alive. And that's basically what they do. She gets buried alive. There's a whole twist to it where, I don't know, it was just really claustrophobic, really anxiety inducing. There's great moments in this segment where the casket is cracking and water is leaking in, and there's some cool effects on this weird skeleton ghost looking thing, and the way it ends was really cool. So I enjoyed Suicide Bid a lot. One of the highlights of this movie. Next up was Ozzy's Dungeon. Probably the weirdest segment in this whole franchise. It is so bizarre. It's parodying like 90s Nickelodeon game shows where like Double Dare, shows like that. And one of the contestants gets severely hurt, and then it cuts and it fast forwards to the family of the contestant that got really hurt, and they're getting revenge on Ozzy, the host, and they've kidnapped him, and they're just torturing him. It ends in a bizarre way that was just weird as hell, but I still really enjoyed this one. The Gawkers, really cool idea. A Medusa segment. I mean, like, when have we seen Medusa in a horror movie? I can't recall. Like, again, very unique concept where these two guys have this neighbor who they think is just smoking hot, and they're obsessed with her, and they have the main character, his little brother, sets up a webcam and puts spyware into it so they can spy on her, and she ends up being Medusa and figures out that they're spying on her, and she goes to the house and makes them all into brick. And very cool segment. It was really, 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 really good. I enjoy the Medusa aspect. Like, again, that's something you don't see a lot. And then the last segment, To Hell and Back, was my least favorite. It's just okay. These people are doing like this ritual on New Year's, and they end up in hell. I don't know, man. It wasn't great. But my number 2 is definitely VHS 99, which means that the newest VHS, I'm pretty sure, is my favorite. VHS Beyond was so good. I was nervous for this thing because, again, VHS 85 came out last year. Not my favorite, toward the bottom of the ranking. But this one really, 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 really wowed me. Knocked my socks off. The first segment was Stork. It's directed by the guy that did Thanksgiving, so you're gonna get some wild, over-the-top stuff in here. These cops, they go into this place that supposedly has this kidnapper that's been kidnapping kids, and it's just full of zombies. And then randomly out of nowhere, this huge stork bird-looking thing is like the head of the house. And he's taking babies to feed them. And again, very vague. They don't really answer, like, why the hell, like, what is this bird doing? I mean, they don't really explain a lot. Still, such a cool segment. I love Stork. And then you also have Fur Babies, which was Justin and Christian Long's segment. Justin Long and his brother. Yes, that Justin Long. Fur Babies was about like this weird lady who ran like this dog sitting thing, and these people suspect that she's being mean to animals, so they go in and they pose as this couple that wants her to sit their dog, and turns out the lady kidnaps people and turns them into dogs, and it was a very weird, whacked out segment. That makes me concerned for Justin Long. I'm just kidding, but it was very weird. I will say it was a pretty good segment. I will say, it doesn't really fit the feel again, this whole entire movie was sci-fi alien abduction themed, so to have this one thrown in there doesn't really fit. This next one is without a doubt my favorite segment in the whole entire franchise. Like, I'm still thinking about it, and that is Live and Let Dive, where you have these skydivers who are in this plane, and there's a UFO happening while they're in the plane, and it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier as it goes along. It's like, it's my favorite segment of the series. It's so crazy. Bodies falling from the sky and aliens running through fields, and it was insane. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It actually, a jump scare got me toward the end. When you find out that there's 2 aliens. Like, oh my god. I loved Live and Let Dive. And then Dream Girl, my least favorite segment of the movie. It's still decent, still pretty good. Where you have like this pop star who turns out to be like this robot creature who's like a slave or something. Again, pretty vague, not really explained. Which I guess you can expect with these movies at this point. But yeah, some really cool moments for sure. It just lacked something. Next up was Stowaway, which was directed by Kate Siegel, who is the wife of Mike Flanagan. She's the girl that's in Hush. She directed the one called Stowaway, where this girl is trying desperately to get footage of a UFO. She ends up finding one, and she goes inside it, which is, I don't know, she's an idiot. And so again, some really cool concepts, some really cool ideas. She doesn't die like how you would expect her to die. You would expect her to die from an alien, but she ends up like dying in orbit because she goes to space and the thing, and ends on a very like what is that, what's going on type of way. Again, don't really explain like why is she turning into an octopus spider. Did she get mixed with the DNA? And doesn't really answer a lot of questions, but it's still a really cool segment. And Abduction/Adduction was the wraparound story, which was a full-on mockumentary wraparound story where it's this documentary about aliens and how if they're real or fake and if they're CGI or not. And they even get those YouTuber guys who actually look at CGI effects in movies and sees how fake they look. And I don't know the name of them. You probably know who I'm talking about. They make a cameo in here. Pretty good wraparound story. One of the better ones for sure. I really liked how real it felt. For sure. And yeah, overall, VHS Beyond won me over. Definitely my favorite. One of the best found footage movies I've seen. It's one of the best horror movies this year. Check out VHS Beyond on Shudder right frickin' now. It will not disappoint. One of my favorites of the year. One of my favorite things that Shudder has done. So that was my ranking of all 7 VHS movies. This is a franchise that I kind of was late to watching, but I overall loved the franchise as a whole. Really fun franchise. I will be tapped in and tuned in every year when Shudder releases them. Hopefully they still are going to keep with the annual tradition that they've been doing the last 4 years, hopefully. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on the VHS franchise down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on that bell. Follow my Instagram at IanLives_, and follow my Letterboxd at wehateian. And I absolutely freaking love you guys. Peace.